Hello, everyone. I'm JEAN-CLAUDE Beyond Mystic, and welcome to this November 2nd Wacky Woo show. With me, of course, is the one and only Penny Kelly. You can find her work at pennykelly.com, and you can support her as well here at patreon.com/Penny Kelly. Penny, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to be back, and it's good to be here on this particular day because there's so much changing in the energies. It's like, OMG.
I'm so happy. And you know what? I sent you a message earlier this week. I'm like, I have to have Penny Kelly back on. There's so many things trotting around in my head and like connection points that I'm trying to understand. I'm like, oh, I think it's due for a conversation with Penny. And I just realized both you and I are color matching with your poster. I'm like, okay, something happened today that looks really good. I usually never wear a vest, but I'm cold here tonight. I have a bit of a cold vest. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here tonight live on the show. We are triple casting right now on X, YouTube, and also on Rumble. I believe we should be fine, Penny, with the conversation tonight, and we're going to stay on YouTube for the whole show. That said, guys, if you're experiencing some issues, I know some people were having stop and go issues on Rumble in the last couple of broadcasts, so maybe move over to the YouTube feed or the X feed. Whichever works best for you guys. And thank you again for joining us, and let us know in the live chat where you guys are watching from this evening. Now, part of the reason I wanted to have a conversation with you tonight, Penny, is about not 3i Atlas itself, but perhaps the ramifications of 3i Atlas. And we have to go back a little bit here and give some credit also here. Last year, when I had interviewed Clef High during the time where we had the New Jersey drone situation, which he had predicted maybe 6 months prior. He was right on time with that. He had told me also by running his data that in July of 2025, we would be getting an echo of that and maybe a continuation and a big conversation about ETs. And so, of course, what happened in July this year? We discovered 3i Atlas. And since then, the internet has been abuzz with, is it a rocket? Is it a comet? Is it a rocket ship? Is it a cruise ship from another place? What the hell is this thing? And every couple of weeks since then, we've had more and more telemetry data suggesting that this thing is not acting like a normal comet. There's a bunch of videos out there. I posted one last week to show the people, hey, it's changed course, it's changed energy, it's changed its pulse. It seems to have responded to perhaps a communication that we sent to it. So all of these things suggesting, including in the last couple of days, an acceleration and perhaps another change of course here behind the sun. So that is cool enough in itself, and it raises all of these questions. But why I want to have the conversation to you tonight is, what the hell is this going to do to the human race? And before I get into that, I want to kind of get into the mindset of perhaps what officialdom is dealing with right now. Because they understand perhaps more than anybody else what is going to happen to the human race. They probably have all these game plan scenarios where if this happens with contact, we have to do this, blah, blah, all in an effort to keep control of the masses, right? And the normie population, so to speak, who are not aware that we are not alone. So I want to start there. About a month ago, Trump invited all of the top brass, the military Trump brass, for this big meeting. In the news, we were treated to, okay, the woke stuff is dead in the military, no more fat generals, like it's the War Department now. So they had a couple of messages that they wanted to communicate to the public at large. But clearly, he didn't put all of these people there just for hurrah, we're changing names and, you know, we're going to be a little bit healthier and men are going to be men again in the military. That wasn't what it's all about. Something was happening in the background also that was not communicated. That is my humble opinion. It's my feeling about that. But I want to start the show there too. Where do you think that meeting was going? What perhaps was being said? And how does that perhaps connect with this gameplay here of something that is about to perturb our sense of our reality here on the planet, and how they are trying to either control it, downplay it, or manipulate it to another agenda, so to speak, for their own good. Where are you on that, Penny?
I had several, I'll say, impressions of that whole thing. And in the very first impression was, if they all gather under one roof, they're fools. That was the first thing.
Yeah, from a
The,
security standpoint, it's like, dude.
yeah.
Yeah.
The second thing was, okay, maybe there's something afoot that's really, really important. And when I was holding that, it was like, okay, it's a distraction. Something else is happening, and they need to be, the top people need to be distracted from that. But I didn't know what the distraction was about. So then I just kind of sat with that. And then when I heard what went on, I was like, OMG. It struck me as this is a perfect example of the difference between what I'm going to say, that I guess I'll call it the difference between the generations. Most of those guys in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and all of that, they come from the generation of kinetic war. I think Hegseth and his group are really from the generation of energetic war. And it can be kinetic, etc. But that was my impression. Is like maybe nothing was said about that, but at the intuitive level, what I kept thinking was Hegseth is not on the same page, and they are, they're on the old pages, and Hegseth is not being straight with them. And that was just, I left it with those, those few things. They're a fool if they get under one roof. It's a distraction. Something big is happening in the background. And then the impression, the shocking difference between Hegseth and what he's representing, which is a whole different generational approach to war. And then those generals who are very grounded, very down to earth, very much involved in, hands and feet and guns and ammo. And we're past that. We're so far past that. To me, it's like, don't waste your money on those things. Maybe, but that's it. That's just not where we're going. That isn't where we're at in terms of war and war tools, we'll call it. So
could it be possible? And I struggled with some of his speeches during the event. I do have a bit of an echo. I think, could you bring your speaker volume down on your side, on your laptop?
yeah, I can.
itself?
I can.
I think that's where it's coming from. Okay. I was struggling with a few of the messages from Hegseth myself. One of them was, go out and draw fire. We are at war. I'm like, whoa, like that was pretty serious. And I thought maybe he's talking about, the enemy within. We're going to do a big cleanup here. And he was really talking about that, as opposed to going out and shooting with bullets with Russia or China or something to that effect, right? Or maybe he was also talking about, we're at war here. There's this threat from outer space. That's why we've been talking about the Golden Dome for a whole year. That's why Trump has been touring the world, getting the support for this global defense initiative. If you look at it in that way, which scenario would you give more probability to? That he was talking about cleaning up the inside, that we were infiltrated and we're cleaning up house here in the United States and we're going to concentrate on that before going abroad? Or was he talking about, like you said, the traditional warfare model and regime change outside the world, or perhaps the ET component? Or was it all of the above and all of these weird subterfuge
None of the above.
Yeah.
None of the above. What I listened and I thought, okay, I don't know what he's talking about. But at that same time, or very shortly after, we got into messing around with Venezuela. And when that happened, my awareness of way back in, I don't know what year it was, probably 20 years ago now, when there was all this talk about there's going to be 3 zones on the planet: the Asian Australian zone, the European African zone, and the Americas. The Americas, North and South, would be the 3rd zone. Each one would have its basic religion and its basic economy. And it was the perfect setup for war. And that was part of the New World Order plan. And so when Hegseth did his, what sort of talk is that? And then right after that, there was the messing around with Venezuela. I thought, oh, I had the feeling that there were secret conversations that they didn't publicize that
Sure.
had to do with taking action to solidify North and South Americas. And so I don't know. I'm watching to see
So
it.
that was on the pretext of removing the drug trade and perhaps cleaning
Right.
that up, but it's really about the North American continent, I'd say, or an
That's
American
what it
continent.
looks like.
Okay.
And bringing the cartels under control. Now we have a war going on in Brazil. And it's a mess. It's a mess.
Right.
And they're just breaking up everything. And they will, after they get done breaking it up, they will offer some solutions and say, we're going to do this. And they probably will.
Well, listen, Trump last year was adamant. You remember there was a meme that he had put out at Christmas. He was adding Greenland and Canada to the cart on Amazon
Yes.
and the Panama Canal, right? So I think that's the overall plan. He wants to have
Right.
this kind of defense economic zone here in Canada. Prime Minister Carney has lauded and praised President Trump for security on the world stage, which was a big surprise to most of us because during the campaign, Carney had said that Trump was the enemy of
Yeah.
every democracy on the planet, and suddenly he was praising him. So there's that. And when the reporters had asked President Trump at the time, they said military force against Canada. He says, no, economic force. When you look at everything that's happened right now with the tariff negotiations, Canada has lost and lost and lost and lost to the point where we're paying more tariffs now than when Carney said that he was going to negotiate a deal with Trump. So he's proven he wasn't the guy to negotiate with Trump, at least not on the tariff side the way it was sold to Canadians during the election.
Yep.
That being said, if you look at the weakened state of Canada on an economic front right now, we could be pretty much where Trump wants us to be to bring this new amalgamation together. And as that's happening, we're seeing some shift here in the mainstream news to where they're starting to, it looks like, at least open the door to start bashing on Mr. Carney, right? Whereas before, most of the mainstream news, left or right leaning, they were all kind of supporting and propping him up during the last election. So there's a little bit of a tectonic shift happening in the background. It's subtle right now, but you see it as they're pre-positioning for it. So I'm saying that in the context of this conversation, there seems to be a bigger plan at foot than what we're being told in the mainstream news. Now, I want to add another component to that and get your take on this too. And guys, don't worry, we'll get into 3i Atlas, but we're setting the stage here for all of these big movements, and we're trying to connect the dots tonight in this Wacky Woo episode. So a couple of months ago, Trump federalized the police force in DC on the guise of reducing crime in the city. A lot of people are saying, well, actually, the stats in the last couple of years show that it was going down. Like, what was that all about? So was it a trial balloon for him to go into other cities? And after that, he announced like 19 other cities. And then we saw Chicago, another mayor saying, hey, get out of our cities. We don't need you, blah, blah, blah. Again, kind of a trial balloon to get the American public on board with either the federalization and or also seeing military in the streets. Well, just now, right after this meetings with all the top brass, the generals, etc., Trump just announced this, that the Pentagon was ordering the National Guard units in every U.S. state and territory to form a quick reaction force by January, trained and equipped to respond to riots and civil unrest.
Yep.
What is that all about, Penny? Where are you on that? Is this a response to perhaps an economic shift, that final push to push us into the digital ID and the EBT cards not working because of the government shutdown? Or is this a reaction to perhaps what they think might happen here with 3i Atlas? What's this militarization creep or scope creep here that we've seen over the last couple of months? Again, under the guise of, getting over some of the BLM protests, chasing the people who are funding them. What's going on here in your view, Penny?
I can't remember which look-see it was, but I looked at that exact question, and Trump was responding to a report that came out by some general, and he talked about, the general said, countries don't collapse. How'd they say that? Countries collapse because their cities have collapsed. They don't The cities don't collapse because the country collapses. The country collapses because the cities are no longer working.
Right.
And it was really quite a well done, well thought out, well written report. And it was obvious that what Trump was doing was trying to preserve the US in such a way that he still had a country to be managing and
Right.
trying to prevent the breakup.
Yeah.
Because there's all the key points: Chicago, LA, Baltimore, New York, DC, they're in a bad way. San Diego, a really bad way. And they have become lawless. And that ends up chasing people around. People end up feeling like they don't want to be in that vicinity. That takes down business because a lot of businesses are clustered around cities. And then people, they buy houses there because they want to work there.
Right.
But when the city becomes too dangerous, too lawless, too dirty, too out of control, then that collapses an entire region. And I think that's really what he was trying to get ahead of. I do think that there are the people that want to break up the US, they're not giving up. And other countries, they're not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
I was very heartened to see that the Netherlands has stood up and said to the EU, sorry, we're not going with anything that you say anymore, or specifically, we're not doing the migration thing, the migrants, and some of the economic stuff and some of the food stuff. So that's 2 points. In Europe, not Romania, over in the Eastern Europe, and then up in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
And they've got a little bit of that. I'm standing up a little bit from Maloney in Italy. That's a triangle. That's saying, we're not going there. And so I think what Trump is trying to prevent here is the triangulation of those points in the U.S. that could just collapse the whole thing or split the whole thing.
Okay. And that, of course, is, it's welcome from that point of view. We all want the same thing. We want the change and we want to extricate ourselves from these controllers, but not to the point of destroying the country. Like that's called a Pyrrhic victory, right? We don't want that. Now, somebody's saying on the chat here, Catherine Austin Fitz, and others are saying that this move to put the military in the streets in the States is so unconstitutional.
Right.
Well, yes, and also no, in the sense that if we are in a state of emergency, which is undeclared, then yes, it would appear that way. And again, here's the dilemma of having these conversations, because we're not told the truth of the current situation, whether that's 3i Atlas, whether that's foreign interference, whether that's these nonprofit organizations funding the BLM and these terrorist groups inside the country, whether that's the young fighting males who've been coming across our border in the last couple of years unchecked and creating these sleeper cells. There's a lot to worry about. And at the same time, the president has to make some moves to maybe thwart that and mitigate those things without yet alarming the public to the real danger at hand. So I could see how he's on a tightrope with that. And it's still important to have these conversations, because at the very least, it's going to force the administration here, with comments like the one by Catherine Austin Fitz, if we read it as read, that they at least have to give us something to understand why they're doing these moves. Again, we shouldn't, as a population, give them carte blanche and say, "Oh, just trust the plan. Trump has it all." No, I don't believe in that for a minute. So, putting these things in context and putting their feet to the fire, I think is absolutely apropos. And the comment on the screen is as well. Now, in your view, do you feel that there is a way for the administration right now to perhaps cue us in on something that's about to happen or that is happening without like spooking the herd? Or are we going to be the last to know? And I'm raising this, and let me just bring back the poster again, because there's a clue in this one here. They want a quick reaction force to be ready by January. That was interesting, and it piqued my ears, because when I spoke to Cliff about this, maybe this was a month ago. This is a phone conversation. It wasn't a video. He said something to the effect that the 3i Atlas problem was going to be denied and overlooked by officialdom for as long as they could. This was a
Right.
situation to where they don't want to admit it. They're going to let all the talking heads on mainstream, not on mainstream news, in some cases, and all the podcasters talk about it, but that they would remain silent and really not talk about this for the longest period of time while they're still trying to prep to eventually deal with the onset of it. But he says when they're forced to, because at some point it'll be in your face and everybody will know about it, he says that's probably kind of ish January. That's the time frame.
Okay.
He said we would know at the end of October if this thing is real or not. And if you look at the last announcement, I believe in the New York Post from yesterday, it's kind of spelling it out. The damn thing just accelerated and slowed down again, and here it is. Let me just share that with you guys. So we kind of know already if we're paying attention. The Manhattan-sized interstellar object 3i Atlas accelerates and turns possible signs of alien engine. This was Avi Loeb again in his latest calculations. So we're there now. We're so far past. This is just a comment. There's something else. But the administration and officialdom around the world really are still quiet about this. We're still in government shutdown. They're not sharing the data from the telescopes and the observatories. So something is up. And so I think Cliff High was right that they would try to deny, and obfuscate this for a while. But if in fact this comes so evident in January, where are you on that? First of all, have you talked to some of your people here on the timeline of what's happening with 3i Atlas, how this is going to affect the Earth, and what perhaps our role might be, not just you, but the people in the chat here tonight, to kind of prepare the groundwork for some of those huge catalytic changes that I want to say that are about to happen, but really, I have to admit they've already started, and perhaps most people haven't noticed yet, but some people are in fact noticing. Penny, where are you at?
Let me say it that yes, I have twice in the last 2 weeks, so that it was nothing for quite a while, and then all of a sudden a burst of activity, messages saying, you know, we want you to put a documentary together. I'm like, and then about 3i Atlas, that this was the turning point for the world, not just the US, not just Europe, not anybody specific. And I think that turning point, and I'm not sure what the government is doing, why they're thinking January, or what they've got in their head, but when you take into account what we're seeing up there with 3i Atlas, and you understand the nature of reality in the cosmos, then you can't get away with all the stories that are being told right now. It comes down to telling the truth. Well, if you tell the truth, that sort of undermines all the science that people have learned over the last couple hundred years. It undermines all the religion over the last 2,000 years. It undermines consciousness, because it really it undermines life and consciousness, because it presents another point of view, another set of factors. So if you want, I'll go through some of those factors and draw the conclusions that is happening, the conclusions that are happening or are being drawn by science. And I have wondered, I'm not sure, but I have wondered if that's what they're trying to avoid. They want some kind of fighting, some kind of trouble to distract people from the truth of this reality. And I think they know. So, the thing that we need to understand, and I have some things here that I can share.
Absolutely. I want you to share all that. Let me put in a video I mentioned to you before the show. I saw a young man kind of explaining something in it brought me to thinking, like in 2000, I don't know, 9 or 10, I took my Reiki master course. And in my mind at the time, I thought, okay, it's an old tried and tested modality of healing and moving energy. And I was akin to that, being in
Right.
martial arts and all that. And I thought, oh, there has to be other ways to improve it. So I started using crystals, light therapy, sound therapy, all in unison with some of these older ancient Reiki
Yeah.
symbols. And one of the things that I started maybe a year or two after, I met this other Reiki master who was using tuning forks to basically sound out for herself where some of the problematic area and some of where the blockages of energies were in her patient. And she taught me how to do this, and she had given me these sets of tuning forks.
Yep.
And while training with this, I realized at one point, and I forget the term, and maybe you know the term, when you have two different tuning forks and you hit one
Oh, yeah.
and you don't move the other one, and you bring the one that's in vibration closer to the other one, suddenly this one, without any input whatsoever, will attune or
Right.
will get into the same frequency, right?
Right.
So I'm like, whoa, that shows again that we're in the same soup. And when you introduce a new
Yep.
frequency, it emanates and it affects everything around it.
Right.
This is the concept that the gentleman in the video I'm about to play here is explaining in his own terms about 3i Atlas entering now our field of experience, and how by the very nature of it being of a different frequency, it's changed already.
Right.
Not changing or going to change, but it's changed already our frequency, and thus our perception of reality.
That's right.
So I want to get into that conversation here with you tonight, and we'll get
Okay.
into your points, and then we're going to get into plasma and all that, and how all of this ties in.
Okay.
So let me just, I think I have to change slide deck because we need the audio on this one. Hold on a sec. So go here, and this one. I think we're on the right one. So add this one to stage. And do I have the sound here? Yes. Okay. Sound is good. Let me know right away if you don't hear it when I press play, but I think we're good.
When this interstellar object entered our
Good.
it started to change the morphic resonance of the information conscious field of our solar system. We are at a deeper level of understanding as to reality once we go to this more informational level and this quantum level, the base field of energy, information, and consciousness. You have something foreign come in and everything already has this resonance and structure in the solar system, it's going to change things. It's not interstellar object, it's an interstellar being. Like, what's the consciousness of this? We know there's mineral consciousness, plant consciousness, animal consciousness, right? Different higher dimensional consciousnesses as well, astral going into causal and all these different zones. Like, you read into Isaac Bentov and his work and many others. And so there's many ways that we can explore this, but this alien angle, I mean, maybe we had to, but that's very materialistic. And so we'll get our answers in the realm of material reality. If that is the case, we will see it do a trajectory move, and then we should freak out.
Okay, so I'm not so much interested in the physical aspect of it, like whether it's a metallic or whether there's physical beings. I'm interested in this more energetic field, morphogenetic field that he's talking about, how that changes our perception of this reality. He talked about consciousness, right? And all levels of consciousness affecting each other.
Right.
I'm going to put that link in the live chat, guys, if you want to repost that on your social media, because I think that's food for a lot of conversations here moving forward. Your first reaction to this video, and if you want to remind the audience, maybe the term I'm struggling to remember with the entrainment, I think is the term with the two frequency forks, and how we get entrained to another frequency when we're close in proximity to a different
resonance. There's resonance, there's entanglement, there's entrainment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Now, your reaction to that video, to what the gentleman was alluding to, are you seeing it, and are your people, when they're asking you to make this documentary here, to kind of, I guess, create a roadmap for conversation for this change for humanity?
Yes.
How is that resonating with you, that video, first of all?
He's right. He's telling the truth. He's pretty accurate. So there's, what he says is true. There's a whole lot of explanation behind that, but basically what he's saying is absolutely true. And that is the impact of 3i Atlas. That is a different set of compositional materials. And I sent you a picture of a Brazil stone that that is also from the ETs. I have one here, but I have this photo of it. That Brazil stone is a very rare kind of material. It's called cubanite. You don't see cubanite here, and that came from the ETs who picked up a fellow named Urander in South America, and Linda Moulton Howe brought us these handfuls of these, all of the stones. They said, when we're picking him up, don't go near the bedroom. And we will warn you that we're picking him up by having a shower of stones hit the roof of the porch, which was a piece of metal, I think, sticking out over the steps. And all of the stones that fell were shaped like little flying saucers. And they were different sizes, and this is one of them. And so when it was analyzed, they said, oh, where did you get this? This is cubanite. It's very rare. It's not something you find on Earth much at all. I don't know of any place where you can find it on Earth, but the 3I Atlas composition has been shown to be something that is not a common form of composition. Well, when you originate somewhere else in a system, another plasma system, then your composition can be different because the frequencies that hold you together have to be, have to be supported by the surrounding reality. And then you send that thing on its way, and it's going to react all in every zone it gets into. It's going to react. And there's some things that I think we need to know about plasma and how it reacts that are just kind of mind-blowing. They pull the rug out from under everything we have thought or believed about our reality. So
Right.
yeah.
Let me add this into the mix also. I mentioned these Earth changes, solar flares recently. The inner planets are all reacting, presumably to this visitor, or perhaps to the frequency set that it's bringing and intertwining with ours. The Schumann resonance here on the planet also absolutely bonkers in the last couple of days, and it's on a stretch, and we're locked in here in the last couple of days. Lots of people reporting they're feeling dizzy, they're getting physical symptoms, sleep patterns disrupted, all of this stuff. So let's go back here to the question of the resonance and the entrainment.
Right.
Am I correct when I say 3I Atlas has already had an effect, not just on our system, but us as human and our collective consciousness?
Absolutely.
And it's a question of us understanding how, and also after that, how do we manage that slightly shifting perception of our reality? Because I think that's what officialdom is fearing the most. If they're going to keep us into the slavery matrix model, they can't adapt their slavery model fast enough for our change in perception of reality, which I think has already occurred, but people haven't noticed it or really kind of integrated and understood and changed their habits from it. But I think that's perhaps what's about to happen, including why perhaps the government want to have right control and crowd control up and ready by January. Penny.
That's true. I think it's important. When we were talking before the show, you talked about this compression factor. That the way that one of the ways that plasma behaves is to form a set of nested shells. And they squeeze and come apart. So that's one of the factors that if we get in, we're on the planet Earth, and it is a series of nested shells. There's the metal, and rock stuff as the core, and then around that we have an atmosphere. That's that we call that our atmosphere. It's our with the way we breathe. And then around that, there's another shell. So those are what? Ionosphere, troposphere, I forget what they all are. But each one is a different form of plasma, and it aggregates particles in different ways. And when you start squeezing that by, having new waves come at you, and you're right now we're at a point in time where the magnetic field, which is our protection, is very low and still falling. And we're at a point where the sun is blasting the solar sea, huge waves, huge waves.
We're at a solar maximum, and we're at, also at a stage at the weakest in our energetic shields around the planet. So, and on top of that, we're getting disruption from this visitor pumping out this frequency.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we're primed for something. So you just mentioned this compression thing. So I have to go back, because on the show last week, I believe we talked about it on Thursday, but it might have been also on the pay-per-view on the Wednesday show. I was having a conversation with Jean about this, and somebody was asking, I forget what the question was, and it made me remember this particular blog. It's called The Portal, the Intelligence Hub for the Victory of Light. And the gentleman who runs this blog has a code name, Cobra. And I was listening to this probably circa 2010, 11, 12, in those early days. And at one point, he was interviewed by somebody, and I forget who the interviewer was at the time. I don't want to make a mistake. At any rate, he had explained it because somebody had asked in the questions, why is your code name Cobra? And he had explained, well, that's an amalgamation of two words, compression and breakthrough. Compression, breakthrough makes that word Cobra. And he had explained that for the human population to achieve this critical mass or this liberation kind of threshold, we needed that compression breakthrough to where we had enough energy coming from the top and enough coming from the bottom to exert that pressure in that middle area where we are right now. And that would have a multitude of effects. One, reducing the power of some of those parasites, the archonic layers, some of the astral layers, and also some of the control systems that are embedded in some of these levels, which are commonly referred to in our realm as implants, whether those are physical implants in humans or the etheric implants. And he had said that in that compression breakthrough as well, they had reached various levels close to that in the last maybe 10 or 15 years of this guy being active. And said that one of the big things that was preventing it is what he had called plasma toplet bombs. And he had explained that this was some type of a scorched earth kind of mechanism to where the system of control on this planet, and I'm talking way past governments here, to where if they lost control of the souls on this planet, they had this last final option of scorchers. If we can't have them, meaning the humans, nobody else can. And so he had described this process to where they needed to get to a certain level where they could at least attenuate or remove, not all, because they knew they couldn't remove all of these toplet bombs, but at least the majority of them so that something worth saving could be saved here on the planet in this liberation process. And so now, again, I'm saying this for education for people who haven't had the show, but I'm setting it up for what Penny's about to talk here about, which is plasma, how that relates to 3i Atlas, and this now compression breakthrough period that this guy's been talking about for a long time, which when I asked Janine about it and she pulled cards on it last week, she says, holy shit. Yeah, this is in the cards. What he's talking about is in the now. Whether that's 2 weeks from now or 3 months from now, it didn't matter. But we are in that field of view of that potentiality right now. And as I was talking about through Atlas and all the Earth changes that we're seeing now, and also all of these reports of these UFOs now, USOs coming underwater, again, from below, everything is happening at the same time for this conversation. And then, so this is partly why also I wanted to have Penny on the show here tonight. Okay, I've laid a lot there down for you, Penny. Your first reaction, though, to this compression breakthrough, where we are perhaps on that, where your people say we are on that timeline and process first, and then get into some of these lists of things that you're saying here could be some of those changes here that we're going to have to navigate with respect to this entrainment in frequency and resonance that has already affected the human consciousness field.
Right. So let me lay out some facts, okay? And then I'll draw a conclusion or two, and then we can discuss some pictures. I sent you some pictures, and so the first fact that is needed to be known is that the universe is plasma. It's a plasma universe. It is not a physical universe. Okay, and the scientists say somewhere between 95 and 99.99% of the universe is plasma. So what's plasma? It's a whole collection of charged particles, protons with a positive charge and electrons with a negative charge. Okay, so here's a more formal definition of a plasma. Plasma is a self-organizing, nonlinear, which means it's spontaneous, unpredictable, and complex. Dissipative, which means that it can take in energy, and instead of falling apart, as the second law of thermodynamics would dictate, it takes those energies and kind of squirrels it away in different directions and builds new structures within the original structure. And then it's collective. So let me say that whole thing without all the explanations. Plasma is a self-organizing, nonlinear, dissipative, collective structure. And that's the whole universe. The whole universe is these structures. And there are two huge clouds of plasma between us and, I think, between us and the sun, or between us and the moon. I'm not sure which one it is. And those clouds are probably 3 or 4 times the size of the Earth, each one. So you put them together, they're like maybe 9 times bigger than the Earth. They're big clouds. So let me say some things about these clouds that are sort of hovering over us, okay?
And very quickly, I want to make a quick note also for those of you who attended the Beyond Mystic conference last year. Jay Widener had a presentation on plasma, and he spoke about these clouds also and these beings that are surrounding us right now, and we're just now starting to discover at the humanity level, whereas the militaries, all that, I've already had encounters with them, and more so in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of reports of that. That particular presentation, the one from Penny and also from Jay Widener, is soon going to be made available as a standalone segment here on the Academy in a couple of days from now. I'll let Coco let you guys know when that's up and available, but it's going to be very relevant now to the conversation and what we're about to share with you guys. Go ahead, Penny.
Okay, so plasma, plasmas, plural, they form these grains called dust. They're rice-shaped grains. And so scientists call them grains, but they, they basically say it's dust. And they range from nano size to micron size. So nano is what, 1/1,000,000th of a meter? A micron is 1,000th of a meter. So these aren't big. It's not big dust. But the plasmas form big clouds of these dusts. And the dusts then interact within the cloud with all of those protons and electrons, and they interact very vigorously. And that results in the evolution of that cloud into a complex structure. And they're called complex dusty plasmas. Dusty complex plasmas. So dusty complex plasmas, DCP, they form double helixes, just like DNA. Those double helixes also form crystals that store information in ways that are necessary for intelligence and communication. The dusty complex plasma has areas where some of those particles are very, very densely packed, and then other areas that are empty. They're voids. And around those voids, they form skins. So, and the skin looks like it actually ends up looking like it's around the places where the particles are compressed. The dusty complex plasmas, these big complex things, have very intricate internal structures composed of gases, liquids, and solids. And those solids can be crystalline solids. Crystalline solids hold information, communicate, transmit, etc. They also have electrical flows within them. big electrical currents. I think some of the electrical currents or flows, they call them flows, within the sun are like 17,000 miles wide or something like that. It's huge, huge. Those flows.
You're talking about the Brooklyn currents?
No, not Brooklyn.
No.
This is within the sun itself. The
Okay.
currents form within the structure of these clouds, these plasma clouds. Okay. So then those flows, those internal flows, cause clustering of the particles. And those particles form a nested shell structure. And that's where you, well, we won't, let's not get into that. They're called Coulomb balls. Coulomb is a guy who did some specific things in electricity. So those clusters, those clustered nested shells exhibit the behaviors that are exactly like bacteria, the behavior of bacteria. Those lifelike behaviors of these inanimate particles so precisely mimic living things that they threaten our current definition of life.
Right.
So our atmosphere also manufactures new particles, protons, new dusts, and particles aided by the protons in the plasma, and that's called nucleation. So we have these big plasmas that manufacture particles that form into these complex internal structures. And then we have our atmosphere doing the same thing. So those particles also cluster, and it comes down to, it looks like things are created from nothing. So the question in science, the questions science are dealing with right now is this creation of something from nothing a universal process? Is that something that happens everywhere all the time? If it is, then what is existence?
Mm-hmm.
How can we say, it just appeared? What does that say about us and existence? So it says a couple of things. So there was a guy, this is a Russian guy, Vadim Nikolaevich Saitovich, or I'm not sure how to say his last name. But he said, quote, "Dusty complex plasmas produce something that looks an awful lot like life, and it is a candidate for inorganic living matter." So the result of that has been that science has come to recognize, whoa, there's different kinds of living matter. Humans and the physical realm are not just the only forms of matter. So what are the properties of organic? If those are inorganic, then how do we differentiate the two? And here's the properties. The properties of organic living matter are autonomy, evolution, the ability to change and grow, to mature, etc. Progeny, autopoiesis. Autopoiesis is the ability to reproduce. And those are the main properties. And then organic forms have memory as well. And so organic people, that's us. We are also self-organizing dissipative structures that form another kind of living material. So these plasmas, let's think about the 3I atlas now. They exhibit all of the properties of living matter, but remain inorganic. So that means that they're going to respond, they're going to expand, they're going to change, they're going to react as if they are alive. And scientists that have studied plasma, and there's not a whole lot of them, there's still a lot of scientists that really don't understand plasma and haven't studied it or worked with it. But when you hear all the stuff that's being said about 3I atlas, it all conforms to, it's a giant dust complex plasma. and it's responding and behaving like it's alive because it is, but it is inorganic. So, so at this point, scientists are saying, well, we have organic life and we have inorganic life, but they have a few other kinds that they're not saying much about. And now here's kind of the kicker. Given the fact that dusty complex plasmas, huge, lots of electrical energy in them, they're very electromagnetic. They evolve very quickly. So given the extremely fast evolution property of inorganic life in these dusty complex plasmas and the very slow evolution of organic life, science is asking, does inorganic life invent organic life? Are we the result of these inorganic dusty complex plasmas? The work of William Levengood determined or proved that human beings are plasma beings. They're a collection of plasmas. We are dusty complex plasmas. However, we have a few qualities, and we have, we have DNA just like them, et cetera, et cetera. So since we have all of these things that are the same, what's the difference? Is it in food? No, because in those dusty complex plasmas, those structures within the plasma compete for food. And what is their food? It's more plasma. What is our food? It's more plasma in the form of vegetables, fruits, dairy, et cetera, et cetera. So with the dust made by the plasma itself, replacing atoms, instead of atoms, you have these dust structures, and those become the building blocks. Living bodies can be formed, and from this, charged plasma entities can emerge, all by the process of self-organization. So what are the results that could emerge from that are emerging from that? First one, plasma people. Plasma structures, plasma angels, plasma storage clouds, alien inorganic personalities, ghosts, plasma drones, etc. So several kinds of matter are now proven to exist. And the bottom line is we live in a plasma universe, not a physical universe. And in fact, physical matter turns out to be extremely rare, less than 0.1% of the universe. So one of the, I forget who it was, said there's no use trying to establish universal laws on the basis of 0.1% of what exists. We should be studying plasma and what it does. And so I sent pictures of plasma that you might want to show how plasma behaves and the patterns that shape our world. So that is that's a different subject. Go to picture number 7. Number 7 in that lineup. Can you do that?
Yes, but that was a Word document. So hold on, I'll change decks. I do have that also. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Here.
All right. So plasma behaves in some very interesting ways. And everything in our physical world has a plasma pattern as its base. So here's some pictures. Plasma behaves it moves in spirals. It moves in vortexes. It moves in these sheets, and you can see the voids, the empty spaces, and the edges of those are where particles collect and form skins. So there's 2 of those pictures with plasma sheets. So that's how plasma behaves. And then we have, what does plasma look like when it comes to our world? So that's number 8.
Okay, let me bring, so that's going to be on a different deck.
Yeah, okay.
It is for you here.
It's plasma that shapes our world. And here's the thing about plasma. Plasma is consciousness. it has its own level of consciousness, and it responds directly to consciousness. And that was something that we proved again and again in the lab. So, and it doesn't matter whether that's local consciousness or not. So here's some patterns that shape our world. These are plasma, pictures of plasma. So we have this amazing world that we live in that we think of is, you know, we ask ourselves, are we alone? Are we all alone? So I'm going to say something that is really to make people think. We are somewhat alone, not entirely. This particular planet, and this goes back to, well, anyway, let me finish what I started to say. This planet and this civilization of people is an experiment that has a destiny. And the experiment is, can we create physical beings who can evolve through the entire sequence of development and come back in touch with the full power of plasma? So that's where we're headed. That's what we are. There's all kinds of plasma people out there. You see ETs, plasma moves through walls without, without even a second thought, and looks the same on either side of the wall. It doesn't really change. It moves in a way that is non-linear. And, when I'm teaching intuition and I'm trying to get the concept of we're moving from a linear time world to a multidimensional time world, that's where you're not limited or waiting for something to happen so you can see what the outcome is. You are just going to the outcome to see what is that outcome. And then you back up and make your decision. You can go and look at all the outcomes and then pick which outcome you want. That's multidimensional existence. That is pretty close to what ETs and people from other systems, plasma systems that are much more fluid than we are, much less dense. So we are something of an anomaly. We're not totally alone. And we are looking for people in all the wrong ways because we're looking for other physical people, and we should be learning what is plasma? What does it do? How does it behave? What can you do with it? And the only thing we ever hear about is, oh, we can make weapons. Yes, you can make some fabulous weapons, and they have some fabulous weapons. But basically, the people that are, us, we who are living here, we are being lied to, I guess is the only way to say it, that, in such a way that we're not being allowed to really finish growing, so that the experiment does not succeed. And that is, I really think that's not fair. So,
to say the least, yes.
Yeah, some
so
other people who are plasma people really want control of the planet, and they don't want to bother with us.
Right. Now, let's go back to, for the audience members, what perhaps either your people are saying or what you're intuiting from the situation. This introduction now of this plasma being through our atlas into our field of view and our consciousness and in our own environment, forcing this attunement or this resonance field with us. What would be some of the effects that we can maybe perceive or expect coming for humanity? Are we seeing an actual physical change to our body and the way our composition is made, to where we integrate perhaps more abilities? Are we seeing a change to our understanding and our view of reality? And somebody was saying in the chat too, and Cliff High is working on this too, our ability to manifest, and Janine's been picking this up in the last 3 weeks in the cards, that this 3i atlas somehow is changing the way we can manifest reality, and it has already done so. Most humans haven't picked up on it. So this whole law of attraction, all the people who have been studying this for thousands of years on the planet are about to get an upgrade here because of this resonance field and the abilities that come within. Can you share with the audience members how you see that transition and perhaps some of those changes, whether they're linear or not, all at the same time? Like, how do you see this transformation happening, Penny?
I see it happening in kind of a sloppy way, all over the board. But some of the effects, in terms internally, once you discover that that plasma that you're made of responds to what you ask it, what you tell it, what you think, you've probably heard this before, be careful what you think. It responds. Your body is a plasma body, and it responds. And that is one thing that if we get a hold of that, what happens to all those healing tools that we're forever searching for? What happens to the pharmaceutical companies? What happens, when people discover, hey, everybody has a different gift, a little different, but everybody has an inherent, innate gift of healing themselves. And some can heal other people as well when you learn to project. So that's one of the things, the downstream effects. If 3i Atlas has an impact and we begin to understand that is a plasma body and we are being impacted by just its presence, to say, what is that? And then what is plasma? And then it leads to all of that knowledge that Levengood was right. It takes 50 years for it to, filter down into society. That's one thing. It's just the healing aspect. Another thing is materials. Once you discover that a metal is an inorganic living material, how do you enhance the consciousness of that metal? And one of the things that I think back on is, and I didn't experience this myself, but when I was working with Don Juan, and after Kundalini happened, from the Carlos Castaneda series, Don Juan,
Yeah.
He talked every so often about the inorganic beings who inhabited the world. It didn't say a whole lot, but I did read about his, he exposed Carlos to some inorganic beings, and Carlos just about crap. Got scared, absolutely terrified. And Don Juan thought it was kind of funny, but still, that the presence of inorganic intelligence is inherent in metals. What can we do with that? How do you get ships that are so intelligent and so conscious that they become your partner as you move through space? So that's another aspect. Another aspect is the food system. Once you discover that you're plasma, and plasma really is, you want some food, you need some food to maintain the physical part. Mostly what that food needs to be is nutrition, high density nutrition. You end up with a different kind of food system. And it doesn't involve all of those processed things that make people millions of dollars. Another thing is
or that give people cancers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What about religion? If things can just take shape, self-organizing, what happens with that whole theory that you were created by God? That there's a heaven and a hell, that the sin, what is all that about?
Control.
Yeah. All of that, ends up looking like a child's story.
Right.
And then we have the whole thing of governance. What happens to government when people can no longer be frightened by stories because they're too awake? They're too aware. What happens to metaphysics itself? I've showed some pictures, or I sent some pictures. You might want to show picture number 9.
Okay.
It's called plasma number 1. And then get ready for plasma, or picture number 10, and then picture number 11. This is a photo. taken here in Michigan, in Grand Rapids. And this was an apartment, and a couple lived there, and they had rented the apartment, and there were so many just frightening metaphysical things that happened. They would go to work, come home, and all the furniture would be in different places. The dishes would be out. All sorts of things kept happening, and they would spend the whole evening putting the place back together. And finally they said, this place is haunted. And so they said, we're moving out. So this picture was taken on the day they were moving out. They were going to take a picture of, okay, I'm leaving the rooms in good shape. They're empty, they're clean. This was picture number 1. See that globe, that yellow glowing ball up at the top of the photo?
Yep.
That's not a light fixture. That is a plasma ball that has sucked all of the light out of the room. Okay, now show picture number, I think it's 10.
10. Okay, hold on.
Which is okay. This was taken a little bit later, and because they were like, what? Wow, that picture was really dark. So this was taken a little bit, I think, shortly after the first picture. The room is returning to its natural light, and now show picture number. The next one, picture number 3. There it is. There's the natural room. So what is happening in this? This happens to be a location where hybrid plasmas interact and cause things that have a similar resonance frequency in those things to move around. It's typically called poltergeist activity or ghost or haunted. It's not. It's science. It's frequencies. It's plasmas interacting. So then show picture number 11, 12. 12.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a different sort of situation, but it's the same concept. This is this woman was taking a picture of her son graduating from the police academy, and she had the thought her husband had just died. and she takes the picture, and as she takes the picture, she thinks to herself, oh wow, I wish Daddy were here. It's too bad Daddy can't see this. And she takes the picture, and there's this, there is a plasma ball moving through the space. That is her thought. That is plasma activated by her thought. And now show the next picture. She takes 2 pictures just to make sure she gets a good one. That plasma thought took all of the energy, all of the plasma out of the space. Plasma generates light. And when you have something that is powerfully emotional, then it collects light and takes it away. And you saw the same thing in that apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And so the plasma had to go back to normal. And here and I have all sorts of pictures like this. This is just 2 of the many photos that I have of people and their plasma bodies and the things happening, that are just not very explainable. Well, they're not explainable using the old science. They are explainable using the science of plasma and consciousness. Consciousness rules plasma. Plasma is conscious, and so it's going to respond. And so these 2 photos here show somebody having enough emotional power in her, I wish Daddy was here, I wish he could see this, that she literally sends a plasma ball with that thought attached to it, and it collects all the light and takes off out of the space.
Right. Well, the idea of us understanding that is reality and there's a science to it and that we're connected to it and that we can manipulate and interact with it, that's the kicker here for humanity, right? It's the interaction moving forward. You said something to me like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. had to do with Kundalini, but it relates to this too. Once we understand how this works, this world really works, that's the key to our freedom, right? And so
That's right.
this three-eye atlas and the conversation about plasma brings us back there again to why all of these subject matters are obfuscated, occulted for most
Yeah.
of us, right?
That's right.
Fascinating. Yeah. Penny, I have a book that I'm trying to find off my shelf.
Okay.
I'm going to take 2 seconds to go get it.
Go ahead.
While I do that, because it ties into this conversation, please explain to the audience members here on pennykelly.com. You were teaching today. When's the next course available? A lot of people are looking for these courses with you. Explain that a little bit, and I'll be back in just 2 minutes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, I I teach intuition. And really I don't really teach it. I just set up the situations and provide the information that allows people to understand the nature of reality, how it works, and how to work with it. And then, you know, I'd have a intuition 1 through 7. Takes a year, about a year. I just finished this year's round of intuition classes, and I start again in January. And the goal is to bring people to their power. That's the hands down. That is the bottom line. Develop the whole consciousness, bring the bring the intuition forward, get people using it. Because once you start using it, you're never going to go back. You just can't go back.
You become ungovernable.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Penny. For the people who want to take those courses, you're starting up again in January.
Yeah. The course dates are not posted. They're not posted yet.
No, okay.
Yeah, but they'll be up. They'll be up in the next few weeks because I have to figure out the calendar for next year. And
right.
And I am so excited about what is happening right now. It's like, oh wow, this is really the understanding. And it's like, thank you, 3I Atlas.
That compression breakthrough again is very
Yes.
much apropos that conversation tonight. So fascinating. It came to a thought with another viewer on the pay-per-view last week, and we've been talking about it ever since. And now I was like, oh, I need to have a conversation with Penny about all this. So
yeah,
so I have a special guest that's going to join us in a couple of minutes also.
Oh.
But I wanted to get this last segment in here with you, Penny, first. And you mentioned something about 3I Atlas, about our understanding of reality, our ability to change our reality, our perception of reality, our interaction with it. All of this set to change and is changing live before our very eyes. And you talked about religion there for a second, and that made me think of something else. I spoke at the beginning of the show when I took my Reiki courses back in, I think I started in 2008 or 9, and eventually got my master Reiki. I think it was 2010. And at some point along that way, I met a lot of other people in that field.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was struggling myself to deal with some of, for lack of better terms, were the voices in my head. I've explained this in shows before. And I was trying to find the meaning of it all, like the guidance I was getting, if I was being manipulated, all these things. And so I was trying to find other people who had had similar experiences and who maybe can help me navigate some of these things that I had very much more control of when I was a kid. I had let that go for a long time. Then it was all coming back at the same time. I talked to you about this too. 2008, 9, it started coming back.
Right.
Anyways, somebody, and I forget, I think it was something Glover, the name of the woman. She had written a book, and I had met her in Ottawa through this connection. And she had said, oh, I have to give you this book, Jean-Claude. I'm being guided to give you this book. And I just found it. It's called Love Without End.
Oh, yeah.
By Glenda Green. Have you by any chance read this book?
No.
Okay. So in it, it's the story of an artist painting this picture of Jesus here. And through the process of painting this painting for about a year, she's having a conversation with Jesus. But you come to understand that she's having a conversation with consciousness. But it's brought from a religious perspective, only to get to understand that it's consciousness. And now also, as you're recounting your thesis tonight, plasma. There's a specific part in here that I had an experience with, which was akin to one of the slides you brought in. She described it, or Jesus talking to her painting the painting, described this process as adamantine particles.
Oh,
And so it
okay.
very much looks like the base compositions of what you were talking about before
Right.
they collide and form
Yep.
denser materials and
Very
eventually
good.
entities.
Yeah.
Okay. And as she was explaining it, Jesus is explaining to the artist that if you only understood that these adamantine particles, nature, very nature, is to obey your perception of what you want your reality to be, and they will coalesce into that reality. So again, going
Yes.
into this whole manifestation stuff.
Yeah.
So this book, guys, go read this book, Love Without End. And again,
Wow.
it's not a religious doctrine book by any means, but it kind of goes through that route to deliver this particular
That's
message about
okay.
consciousness and these adamantine particles, whether they're called adamantine particles, plasma, or these little pixels, as you said before at the beginning of the show. Like now I realize, oh wow, that's all connected. So
Yeah.
I wanted to share that with you guys.
Wow. Very
Somebody
good.
says, I have the print of Jesus painted by Glenda Green. Not sure if she still lives in Sedona. I don't know either. And I'd love to have her on the show to talk to her about that very concept
Wow.
that I've brought that connection. Thank you, Penny, for connecting those dots.
Yeah. Whoa.
Oh, I thought I had my guest in the live screen and she's just disappeared. So hold on, we'll try to make that work and see if we can
Okay.
get her back. Maybe it's a timing issue too as well. I think we just had we did change. Oh shoot, maybe that's what it is. We changed time zones or
Yeah.
the daylight savings times last night here, so I might have made a faux pas.
That
So
is true.
if that doesn't work, guys, I'll have my guest back on another show. But we'll
Okay.
try to salvage just in the rest of the show here. So Penny, as we were going into this conversation tonight, we've gone a lot, and thank you everyone for bearing with us. This is again, it's a Wacky Woo show. It's not a news show here on the Sunday nights, and we have these deep conversations to try to better understand where we are and where we're going with all of this stuff. And I think we've laid out quite a bit of information for you guys to digest here. But I want to go back to the beginning of the show when we were talking about these tuning forks. I believe humans and the planet right now is reacting to this thing. We're seeing it in the Schumann resonance. We're seeing it in people's sleep patterns. We're seeing it also in, I don't know how to explain it, but Janine said something the other day on the Thursday show to where she felt more at ease in the last couple of days and less worrisome about the little stuff. That something had shifted energetically.
Oh,
She
nice.
felt like now we're looking at the bigger picture as opposed to the old movie they're trying to push us into, the fear and all that stuff, right?
Right.
Does that make sense? Are you feeling that same shift also?
Yeah.
Can you explain it?
Yeah, definitely. And there has been this growing sense of excitement in me. I'm going to say, whether we've won or not, it feels like we've won. So, or we are winning seriously. And that, so then, that causes me to stop and say, wait a minute, what are we winning? It's not a win-lose kind of thing. Everybody needs to win. But what I keep coming to is that the shift is really what I'm sensing, not so much win-lose as that the shift into some kind of strength, some kind of courage, some kind of understanding that is pretty unshakable. And I like that. That's the feel of it.
That's very good. Very exciting.
Yeah.
We're cautiously optimistic. There's a lot still being thrown at us from every direction. But thank you, Pelly. I can't. Penny, I really appreciate that. I see my guest is back in the studio here. Let me bring her up. Of course, she's now the co-host of the brand new Psychic Spies show now with Shala and Janine. She's also the host, of course, of Beyond Karma with Crystal. Crystal Yardley, welcome back to the show. How are you? Unmute your mic on your side, Crystal. You're muted on your side, Crystal. There you go. Oh.
Whoop.
Tech tonight, I tell you. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Crystal.
I made it back on.
All right.
How are you doing, Crystal?
There. It must have been the plasma.
Plasma beings are affecting your computer. Did you hear part of that conversation, Crystal? What are your thoughts on all of this?
Oh my goodness, absolutely fascinating. I've had a lot of similar experiences, like things in things showing up in photos, and
Yes.
just seeing these beings out of the corner of your eye, or as your experiences, even where I will be doing a reading with someone, and then the whole thing will just collapse on itself, and everything, like it's happening tonight. The volume will be all crazy, and the camera will be disappearing, and I always say I don't think that's a coincidence. We're moving some pretty big stuff right now. So
We tend as humans, especially those of us who've been censored and marginalized and all that, to think that, oh, it's, official them trying to clamp us down. But really, it's all the energy we're putting together in this field. And especially when we're doing these live shows, the energy of our audience also contribute to sometimes all of this weird and wacky stuff happening throughout the show. Let me ask you, Crystal, about the manifestation stuff. Cliff High's been working on a series on this. He's been very active on his Substack. Some people were mentioning that during the show. Penny and I, in the conversation tonight, we're talking about the, I guess, intervention of Three Eye Atlas, how the conversation about plasma is not only going to, but has already changed humanity to a certain degree. But part of that change has to do with our perception of reality, but also our ability to manipulate that reality. So whether you want to talk about law of attraction and or manifesting, are you seeing it now too when you're doing your personal readings where people are starting to cue in that maybe they're manifesting a lot faster than perhaps they were even 6 months ago or 6 years ago? Are you starting to see that? Or are people having questions about that, or having issues with that, or seeking guidance with that? Like, is that coming up on the radar with your readings?
Yes, it's huge. It's huge. And I mean, manifestation is one of those things that can go in different directions as well, right? So we're needing to be so intentional with the words that we speak, with the thoughts that we cast out, because it seems to be that, and I notice it for myself as well, that I could be just say something and immediately something comes right around the corner, and I'm like, that's what I was just thinking, or I just opened myself up to that, and there it was. And I have a few stories about that I will relay to people, and absolutely I see it in readings all the time. And I really am here to encourage people to speak their intentions as much as possible. And even it can happen even before, in the thought space, before you even have to speak it out loud. It comes into reality. Right. So there's definitely a lot of reflections of that I'm seeing for people. And sometimes I feel that we're even getting to this point where we're having telecommunication essentially going on, and I think Mom and Penny were talking about this in their last show too. And you can be thinking about somebody, and then you'll message them, and they'll say, oh yeah, I was just thinking about you, I'm going to message you. Well, we were already talking, right? We were already having this conversation in our minds. We just didn't know it. And that's I think where we're going.
That's fascinating. Now, you mentioned something that we can't gloss over, which is the responsibility of your thoughts and your manifestation, right? I think on the first YouTube channel, maybe on the second YouTube channel, just the night before I was deleted, I had a conversation on a live video with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. He was talking about plasma at the time. He was talking about manifestation, and he was talking about what he was taught at the 33rd degree higher levels of Freemasonry and other mystery schools that don't need to be named in this conversation. And he said something to the effect, and now I'm on YouTube, so I'm gonna mince my words. I don't want to use the YouTube channel again, but it had something to do with man understanding the huge responsibility, and that's not just man, but this is where he was going with the conversation, but it's humanity. That man need to understand the huge responsibility of the thoughts they carry at orgasm. this was based on the conversation where manifestation could be
Instant.
instant, but also catapulted forward by
Right.
bringing more energy to the intent. And of course, the orgasm and the energy released in the orgasm is just that. And that's why we see all the dark magicians using that type of energy on that side of stuff. But
Right.
you can use it on the white side of things too. Anyways, so the conversation was around that subject matter, and we had referred, I think it was in the Kundalini series. You were in part 1 or part 2, and he was like part 3, Penny. And
Yeah.
I lost the channel
Right.
after he said that. I was always like, oh, YouTube doesn't like those things. But anyway,
know.
it comes back to what we're saying now, and I want to have your thoughts on this too, because Crystal just raised a great point. If we are in a space now to where humanity can manifest a lot easier and faster than before,
Ooh.
very, very interesting in terms of liberation and in terms of growing and maybe removing these shackles of slavery that we're in, but also slightly unnerving given the fact that we might have given a nuclear bomb to some people who can't not yet understand and control some of these abilities. So can we briefly talk to that and perhaps share with the audience members some of the advice you got maybe from the robes, the little men in brown robes, or some of your people in some recent communications about these changes that are happening to humanity right now, Penny?
So one of the things that happens when you understand these principles and what is possible, you go through a whole bunch of stages, but at some point in that whole thing, you realize I can make things happen, and that frightens you, and you keep on going, you keep on learning, you keep on expanding. You end up in a place where your entire old world crashes. And all of the things that were important to you don't seem so important anymore. The things that you worried about, making more money, that's like, that's not the goal. Things like, what do people think of me? We're trying to conform, and all the imaginary crap that we carry, illusions that we carry that affect where our consciousness or what our consciousness is able to manifest, all of that, it just falls away. It results in this place where you're in this place of complete love and complete freedom. And when I say complete freedom, I don't mean that you can do whatever you want and hurt whatever you want or to be selfish or anything like that. It's that you're free of those burdens, of those goals that really don't mean anything. You're free of the illusions. You're free of the worry about what people think. You're free. You're no longer trying to conform. You still have responsibilities. You still have some constraints, but you go about those with a whole different attitude. And the longer you stay in that place of freedom, the more peaceful you become inside. So I often say to my students, I live in a pool of peace. It's just, it's silent, it's quiet, that's it. That's all I can say about it. But when you stay in that pool of peace for a very long time, the silence opens you to more intuition. That intuition then feeds you. And so you become even more quiet, so you can hear, listen, respond, feel better. And so you get quieter, which opens the intuitive doors even further, and telepathy and precognitive stuff, and knowing. And so that makes you even quieter. And the quieter you get, the more your intuition and your knowing expands. And so it becomes this compounding interest kind of factor in your life. And if you're on the side of light, then you're going to end up in a place where you can have an impact, and it'll be a good impact. If you're on the other side, you're probably going to butt heads with the people who are working in the light, the people who are working in another kind of light. I call it the dark light. They don't really, they see that power, they use that power, and it's not good outcomes. People are not happy. They don't feel secure.
In astrological terms, a couple of years back, we were looking at, I forget which alignment it was, Penny, and you and I talked about this, to where
Okay.
the planet itself right now also was
Yes.
now suddenly more inclined or less inclined to let the manipulators manipulate, and that it would start favoring more service to others type of initiatives and energies,
Yeah.
whether that related to gold, silver, financial system, whatever. The planet had shifted, and in favor was on that side. I forget, I think this alignment happened about 2 years ago, and we're
Yeah.
starting to see more and more of that reflection now. On one hand, the planet is helping us, and we
That's true.
basically are on her back riding this energy wave. But now it appears, and I want to have both of your takes on it. I'll start with you, Penny, and then I'll ask Crystal. It appears that the sun, with this solar maximum, also
Mhm.
is now also having an impact in either quashing or attenuating some of the negative uses of these energies to control and continue to manipulate humanity, while we are riding the waves of having more ability to extricate ourselves from this
Yes.
slavery model. Can you have your people talked about that also, Penny? And do you see the sun playing a role in this right now too, in what we talked about earlier as this compression breakthrough period we
Yeah.
might find ourselves in?
So one of the things that I've experimented with is conversations with Mother Earth, the planet herself, and conversations, lots of conversations with the sun, and the weather, especially the wind. I love the wind. So what happens when you have those kinds of conversations? You end up. It's not like going to visit your mother, even though it is Mother Earth. Um, the conversations are different, but what you understand, bottom line, is that this is a conscious being, and I will never forget the point at which I asked the planet, what are you going to do with your future? What are you planning to be when you grow up? And she said,
I'm gonna be a
I,
solar system.
yeah, she said, I'm counting on the humans. And I said, in what way? And she said, my dream is that I will give you everything I've got. And when you evolve, you will take me with you and be able to recreate me at will. And I was like,
Whoa.
I don't know that we're okay. I hear you. So I left it at that. But that really affected my whole perception of the planet and where we are going, and the power to recreate. We've done a lot of damage to the planet at this point, to her systems, and she's hoping at this point that we will understand the nature of reality, which is plasma, and stop emptying her. She makes her own water. She makes her own oil. This is an amazing experiment. It's so, I've been other places and it's not like this. It just isn't. But the goal that we have is, a lot of people have, I'll say it this way, is to clean up the planet. Well, she can clean herself up, but she would much rather that she doesn't do it because she doesn't have the delicate touch that humans have. Her solution is roll over and wipe everybody out.
Tidal waves and flood.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the goal for her is for us to evolve and to begin to manifest using the tremendous energies of plasma that are available throughout the entire cosmos, and help to heal her in the same way that we're healing one another, the bodies. Right. So that's where I'm at with her.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Penny. Crystal, same question in terms of the sun maybe helping right now, attenuating some of the more negative energies as we are maybe finding our footing here in this liberation process, or this ability for us to manifest our own destiny moving forward. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I absolutely agree with what you're saying there too, Penny. I really feel that we have a great responsibility and connection with the earth and the elements that orbit around us, particularly the sun, and that we are fed and held and supported by the energy of the earth, but we also have this relationship of exchange with our energy. And so we have a great responsibility to be very present with ourselves and working on our energy continuously. And I know for myself alone, the sun is one of the great uplifters of my energy. It is that absolute amplifier where if I'm in the sun's presence, I go immediately into my pineal gland and heart activation. And I feel that there is a special relationship that we have with the sun and its power and its potency. And I don't think that there's a coincidence that it is the light, that it shines a light on so much of our reality. And I think that it's not just the actual light and the physical light. I think that its frequency is pulling that light out in us and is activating us on another level. And I feel as though we're having a similar relationship with 3i Atlas. I think that it is a force, whatever it is, that's coming in, and that us as humanity and as these light workers, many of us that are multiplying and coming into ourselves on the planet now, we're magnifying something like 3i Atlas into our reality. And I think that we're working elementally also with the sun and the earth and the water, and that this is a whole symbiotic relationship that's happening and sort of synthesizing it all together.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So thank you, Penny, JC, Crystal, and Coco, of course, for providing this presentation here tonight. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Thank you both to Penny and Crystal for sharing all of their times with you guys this evening on the Wacky Woo Show. Quickly, before we go, Crystal, there's two comments I just wanted to acknowledge on the chat. Somebody says, yes, sun gazing is amazing and very healing. I agree. And also, when you look at this big movement a couple of decades ago to put everybody on this sunblock stuff, there was a reason for that too. And we're seeing now all the lawsuits and the cancers that were caused from all that. That's on one hand of things, causing cancers to then try to cure them, and this big money-making machine. But at the same time, was it also to prevent some of the benefits that the sun has in this symbiotic relationship that Crystal has just explained now too? So humanity is just kind of waking up to all of this now too. So fascinating conversations from both of you tonight. Again, I thank you, Crystal, for being on. I wanted to absolutely share these brand new shows here with Giannis members who haven't seen it. These are free shows on Rumble now. The new Psychic Spies here. If you haven't seen this, guys, please go check it out with Crystal, Ashella, and Janine. This is the first of maybe 3, perhaps, of this one. Janine was saying it was such a fabulous time doing this show.
It was a hit.
Can you kind of share a little bit here why people who haven't seen the show should actually go back and maybe look at this episode here from a couple of days ago, Crystal?
Yeah, let me try my best. It's so funny when you do these shows, you absolutely go into channel mode and then you're like, what did we even talk about? Oh my goodness. But we were talking about a lot of ultimately some of the structures and buildups around the World's Fair and some of the illusion around that, some of the buildings that have been built, and where there is misinformation that is being printed in terms of what they're saying versus what has actually happened, timestamps, and a lot of deep diving into out in plain sight. What we're being told is not actually what we have seen, and it's it's absolutely it's astounding that people are not really that more people than us are not just going. There is a whole lot of misinformation,
things that don't add up. Yeah, like that elephant in the room. Guys,
Oh, wow.
Fabulous show, first show. And Jenny was saying, man, we went through and we ran out of time. We want to do more of this. So they might do a part 2 to that first inaugural show. And of course, there's more of these Psychic Spies shows coming up. Crystal is also the host, of course, of Beyond Karma. So you've been on it here for a couple of months. Great show as well. And this brand new one, I want you to share this with the audience members also. Crystal, this new show, Down the Rabbit Hole, with your mom, you just mentioned earlier, Ashala. Why is this one different? And why are you excited about this franchise shows also?
It's different because I think that it gives people a chance to get more personal with Mom and I. We wanted to, we have these just epic conversations, particularly over our morning coffee and stuff like that, where we really go down some massive rabbit holes together. And I mean, Mom, like Penny and UJC, is just such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm just always kind of like lapping that up and asking all of these curious questions to pull in more information. And of course, we have a look at the cards and take questions from viewers as well. So it's a really nice time to get interactive on some really interesting topics.
I like the viewer question segment, and I also like the fact that you guys are celebrating success, because we're completely bombarded on this show. This was part of your vision when you created this new franchise show, and it was about trying to combat all of this negativity that we're seeing and are being bombarded with on a daily basis on mainstream news, to say, hey, look, there's people out there. It doesn't take masses of people. Just take one person to have a good idea and to implement it and to create meaningful, positive change for this planet. And you guys have brought up quite a few of those. You do that, of course, on the Beyond Karma show as well. So it's guys, go check it out. Crystal has been working hard and creating amazing content for you guys here. All of these shows are free, of course, on Rumble and here also on YouTube. And on top of that, we're getting a lot of requests for people who are dealing now maybe with more, I don't want to say urgencies, but more maybe time-sensitive matters than perhaps before. We have a normal flow of events of people on the show who book tarot readings, consultation on our website. And sometimes it's a little bit long to get to you guys. You get booked and you're hard to fill up. And for some people right now, it feels like there's I don't want to say urgent matters, but more time sensitive, more punctual things that they want to get answers to, so that they can kind of roll with the punches with all the changes that are happening now. And so you've created a new segment here for the 30-minute tarot reading session on beyondmystic.net. Explain why you wanted to do that, and how you formulate these 30-minute ones versus the big 1 hour long tarot sessions on the site. Crystal.
Yeah, as you said, sometimes people, just need to get in immediately. Sometimes they have a really pressing scenario that they have questions about, that they just need answered really quickly. And also sometimes, we have a lot, I also have a lot of regulars, right? So they'll get an hour-long reading with me, and then they'll be like, okay, I need you next week because I have more questions, right? And so it's also nice because we really get the opportunity to dive even deeper and to answer even more. And so it's a really good opportunity to come in and have just a real focus on a question, because when we do the hour, we get a real overview of your life and dive into a lot of different things. But sometimes you don't need that whole thing. Sometimes you have something just really succinct that you need to look at, or maybe we need to look at, I'm thinking I need to move here, here, or here. What do I do? Right. So it's just a real great opportunity for us to dive into what's really pressing in the immediate reality for you.
Well, guys, if you're interested in that, both in the 1 hour tarot reading with Crystal or the quicker response here with the 30-minute one, check it out at beyondmystic.net. You can hit on the consultation page. If you use the coupon code BeyondMystic, there will give you 10% off as well. So thank you so much, Crystal, for that. Penny, remind the audience members also how they can support you and what type of content differs here on your Patreon to help you be able to do all of these shows, of course, freely for the public matter. What can people find here on your Patreon account?
Oh, you can find me on pennykelly.com. You can find me on Patreon. I have my school now, my community, mycocolife.com, Coco, C-O-C-O. It's not your Coco, it's my Coco. And it stands for Community of Consciousness. And And then I have my classes, which I love, absolutely love teaching. Getting Well Naturally. I'm working on a tarot class. I did teach a tarot class. I have taught it in the past, but I revamped it terribly, wonderfully, completely, is what I should say. And it's 2 parts. So I only have the first part done. I
Okay.
taught the first part and I need to do the second part. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that that I'm involved in. So
You guys are busy. I love it. Universe is giving you work because it knows you can actually do it and provide a
right.
good service. And
Right.
if the comments on the show tonight and the previous shows you guys are putting out, you are having, both of you, quite a big positive impact on the Beyond Mystic community and your own perspective communities as well. So I thank you for that. I thank you everyone for joining us here tonight. I hope you guys watching the show this evening will get a better glimpse maybe on a different point of view, different angle of this throughout this situation, and how perhaps you can use that to better navigate your world and your change and the change that is happening to your world at the same time here, and to look at it from a different perspective than what most of the blogosphere is looking at right now, which was more the physical aspects of the craft and its manipulation, and perhaps who and what is energy is behind it. This was a different conversation, again, talking about consciousnss and plasma and how we're on the stepping stone here for humanity to change into a new level of this experience. And I think that, as Penny is saying there, that's very optimistic for all, each and every one of us. And I appreciate you guys watching tonight. If you do have questions, there's a little bit of it's a complex subject matter this evening. If you guys have more questions about that and you want to dive into maybe more segments of that in future shows, please comment below the video this evening and let us know. Penny and I are, of course, willing to do a part 2 of this and come back and share more information with you guys as we go along. Quite a bit of shows coming up this week also. Just check out the Beyond Mystic schedule page for all of the new shows. And in the meantime, of course, you can support Crystal here by watching all of her shows and commenting here on Rumble. You can support her as well here on the consultation page on Beyond Mystic. And finally, you can support Penny here at pennykelly.com. This was the Wacky Woo Show for November 2nd. I'm talking about Beyond Mystic. I love you guys. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
bye. Take care.